Hi, my name is Laurie Grow, and I'm here with Kate Valentine today. She's a new therapist at Shoresight Therapies, and I want to welcome her today. So, Kate, thanks for coming in and talking with me.
Of course.
We're going to go through some questions just so people can get to know you.
Sure.
Sound good?
Yeah, sounds great. Thank you for having me on this morning.
Yeah. So, first question is, who do you help? Who is your ideal client?
So, I mainly work with kids and teens, starting as young as 5 or 6, all the way through like 17, 18. I also work with young adults, going through life transitions, things like that. And I also really love working with people within the LGBTQ plus community. So, people struggling with gender, sexuality, identity, things like that. Maybe not even struggling, but just exploring. So things like that. I am really familiar with depression, anxiety, life transitions, behavioral concerns with kids. And so ideally, kind of anyone that falls under that umbrella. And really, my ideal client is anyone that's just open minded to therapy. I think I know this sounds cheesy, but one of my favorite quotes is nothing changes if nothing changes, right? And so with
Yes.
therapy, as long as you come in open-minded and you're willing to make a change, that is my ideal client. Anyone that's kind of just willing to work on themselves and make a change.
Right. So somebody that's open, somebody that's ready or about to be ready,
At least
probably
willing,
to come in.
yeah, willing to give it a try, because we
Yes.
can work
Yeah.
together to get you to those next steps.
Right. Right. So that's
Mhm.
great. So three kind of main areas, it sounds like. So kids and teens, and then members of the LGBTQ plus community.
Mhm.
And then like more transitions in the young adulthood. And then
Yeah.
of course, anxiety and depression, kind of our standard. Most
Mhm.
therapists are in that camp.
Yep.
So that's great. But the main thing is somebody that's open
Mhm.
and willing to explore, it sounds like.
Yep.
That sounds great.
Yeah.
All right, next question. So, what is your general approach to helping?
So I would say my general approach is really just meeting the client where they're at. I know therapy can be kind of a strange experience, especially if you're new to that. So I think it's really important to not just jump right into kind of challenging them and doing the work right away, but building a therapeutic relationship first, taking time to get to know them, taking time to allow them to get to know me as well, and just really building that trust first, I think, is foundational
Mhm.
in order for them to trust me and for them to just be willing to kind of be open minded and work with me and take my suggestions as we get more into kind of that challenging, um, tough part of therapy. And so, I think that's really, really important to me when I first start working with a client is to take that time to build that relationship, and that might not necessarily look like what you envision therapy to be. It might just be having a conversation for 45 minutes that doesn't have to do with your mental health, but I think getting to know someone on a deeper level makes it easier to help them. So,
Yes.
I think that's kind of my first approach is building that relationship first. And then again, just meeting them where they're at, meeting them on a human level too, acknowledging that, this is hard and whatever they're
Yeah.
going through is really tough. And just using a lot of validation, because I think that, um, the world is tough and a lot of us
Mhm.
have a lot of big feelings that really aren't talked about, and so making sure to acknowledge and validate that whatever they're experiencing is fair and valid, and helping them work through that. So I think really just kind of, again, meeting them where they're at, using a lot of validation, um, so that they feel safe, so that
Yeah.
they feel like it's a safe space to really talk about whatever they're going
Right.
through, that they know that whatever they're experiencing is okay.
Right, right. I love that. I think it does make a huge difference spending those like first few sessions, really spending the time with the client, really trying to understand, everything that they can share with us and get to know them, and they get to know you, and that trust is built. Because without that foundation, then nothing can really happen.
Right.
So I love that. I love that.
Mm-hmm.
And then the validation piece as well. I mean, I think of most people kind of grow up sort of being told, you're feeling, too much, or, I'll give you something to cry about. Those kind of messages we all receive, most of us receive somewhere along the lines. So having somebody with you that can validate those feelings and really listen. I mean, that's another thing, is how often are people really listening?
Right.
Right. Yeah. So that's awesome. All right. So next question. Are you more directive or more guiding? What's kind of your approach in how you are in a session?
Yeah. So I think it depends. I think it depends on the client, first of all. It depends on what they need. It depends on what they prefer, what they're going to be receptive to. I think this is a little trickier with working with kids. I think with kids, you have to be a little bit more directive, especially younger kids, right? They kind of have to have that more directive, because otherwise they're like, let's just play this whole time, right? So there has to be a good combination of kind of like, yeah, we can do this, but then, this is going to be your homework, or this is how I'm going to challenge you. So I tend to kind of, again, spend the first couple of sessions getting to know the client. That way I can kind of determine what route is best to take. I'm also really open talking with them about that as well, and kind of saying, I'm here to support you, but I also wouldn't be doing my job if I didn't challenge you. That's how we grow. And so I will challenge you. You can tell me if that's too much. Instead of just pushing back or just refusing or getting really upset, like just tell me that that's too much, or tell me that you're feeling frustrated, or you're feeling like this is too much for you at the moment. And so I think a good combination of both, but also just allowing that space to kind of talk about that rather than just me assuming what's working for them. And so I do tend to also, especially with older teens, or even just talking with parents too, asking what has been working, what do you think isn't working, do you need me to challenge you more, are you feeling like I'm pushing too hard? And so I think just overall in therapy, communication obviously is number one, but I'm definitely open to that feedback as well. So it's really just all about the individual client, but I think I'm flexible in kind of being able to be more directive or guiding or supportive or whatever it is that they need, but are also open to at that moment. Because I think, people come in and they have a lot to kind of start with. And so that can also change throughout our relationship too. They can start off just needing more support. And then as they start to, become more solid in this therapy space and they're more comfortable, then maybe they'll ask for a little bit more direction. So being open to the fact that can change also.
Right. And I think too, being in the moment, getting the feedback within that session is so important, and adjusting and discussing, maybe why that was the case, and, what do you really need here? What would help you, so that they're learning actually within that how to have a healthy relationship of what's really, what really is the important part to talk about. And it's actually what's going on in the room. So
I think that can really help. Also in learning to advocate for yourself too, and kind of helping push the client to advocate for what they need, which then they can kind of help, or that they can take that into their life outside of therapy. And those skills are really important also.
Right. It's a good practice space and a good safe place to do that.
Yeah, for sure.
All right. So Kate, next question. What are your strengths as a therapist?
I think, I've struggled with my own mental health. I have had anxiety. I've seen therapists as well. And so I think I can bring a perspective of not just being on this side of things and having gone to school to be a therapist, but also understanding how scary that can be to be vulnerable with someone, what that feels like to be on the other side of that room sitting and meeting someone for the first time while they ask you tons of personal questions and how uncomfortable that can feel. And just really how hard it is to make those changes. You know, and I think so bringing that perspective, I think, is one of my biggest strengths, is just being able to be empathetic in more of just I went to school for this, I have this license, but also I've been there. And I know that it's a long process. It doesn't happen overnight. And so I think being able to really understand from that perspective has been really helpful for me in my practice so far too, is just letting clients know, you know, I've been where you are, and it's tough, and you know, it's okay that it's hard too. I also think, though, just being having a lot of experience in different settings is a big strength that I have. I've worked on inpatient units. I've worked in like partial hospitalization programs, intensive outpatient programs. I've done individual, I've done group, I've done family work. And so I think that's really helpful to now doing, you know, just outpatient individual work, just because I can understand every stage that people have been at. I've worked with people that need to be going inpatient. I've worked with people when they're discharged from inpatient. I've worked with them down the road once they are more stabilized and they just want to work on building skills. And so I think that has really helped me too, just working with people in all different stages of their mental health journey.
Right. And I think even just having that background knowledge, if somebody needs a higher level of care, I know that can be really difficult and scary for somebody. And if you know exactly how that process is going to go, that can relieve a lot of anxiety about doing that next step if that's needed, you know, and they're not in it alone as well. I think that's another piece that's so important.
Yeah.
All right. So Kate, what can a client expect after seeing you? So what are some of the results? What do you hear when somebody's in that process of discharging, or maybe even throughout the process?
Yeah. So kind of number one is just that they feel supported and validated, that they feel that they aren't judged, that they feel like I've created a safe space, which that's kind of my number one concern, or my number one, I guess, priority when working with patients is just really creating a space where they feel safe, where they don't feel judged, where they feel like they're kind of running the show, right? Where they can, they're never forced to talk about anything they don't want to talk about. And so that's kind of, you know, a lot of the feedback I've gotten, especially because I worked in an IOP program, which is an intensive outpatient program. So I was working with kids and teens for like 4 to 6 weeks daily. And so we really got to kind of build that relationship. And so that was really nice because I got a lot of feedback after working with them for a pretty intense period of time. And just, it was a lot of that they really felt validated. They had never had anybody that validated their feelings. They didn't know it was okay to feel that way before. And so I think that kind of guided me in that direction of being so aware that validation is important. And just making sure that, you know, you're building them up in the same way that we all kind of need support. And so that has always felt really great that I've gotten a lot of feedback that they feel supported and safe and cared for, because so many people don't have that outside of therapy. That's why they're seeking therapy. They've never had a relationship where they've felt validated or cared for, or they feel judged. And so to have that, to be able to create that space, I feel like feels like such an honor. And I feel really lucky to be able to do that. And it feels really great knowing that I have been able to do that.
Yeah, I think that's wonderful. And I also, you know, I'm going to get the quote probably wrong, but most people think that they can love themselves once they've changed. But as therapists realize this truth is that loving yourself comes first, and feeling like somebody's there with you and teaching you how to love yourself and how to validate yourself. That's when real change can happen, because you're not doing that shame cycle anymore. Saying like,
right.
Oh, today, like for instance, today I want to go on a run, and oops, I didn't do it today. Instead of saying all these nasty things to ourselves, we can say, it's okay, but what's the game plan, and how do we do it tomorrow, which takes away so much negativity from our life.
Right. Right. And I really don't like this concept of toxic positivity, right? That people have been talking about, where it's like, oh, just feel happy instead, or you shouldn't feel sad about that, because there's room to feel sad and to make changes. And so I think, that's another thing that's really important to me, is to hold space for that duality of I can feel upset that I didn't do this, but I'm going to allow myself to feel sad about it and then figure out what I can do about it, rather than fighting that sad feeling, because like you said, it's just going to lead to that shame spiral. And, that makes it then harder to actually make the changes you want to make. So really holding space for whatever's happening, right? Feeling sad about that is okay, but then how can we make that change?
Yes. The feelings tell us something, right? And they need to be acknowledged. The more we're kind of pushing against it or trying to run away from them, the bigger and stronger they get. So that allowing that space for it is so important, so powerful.
Yeah. I think a lot of us, like you said, a lot of us grow up not thinking those feelings are okay. Or I think that's a societal thing as well, of just, oh, you're having a bad day, just think positively, or good vibes only, right? And it's like, it's okay to have a bad day. I think it's necessary. So having a space where you're not just allowed to feel that, but encouraged, I think is really relieving for a lot of people. And it's just so needed.
It is 100% so needed.
Yeah.
Well, thanks, Kate, for meeting with me today and sharing a little bit about yourself. If you want to reach out to Kate, you can go to our website at shoresidetherapy.com, and all of her information will be there, and her bio, and you can schedule right online. And you are starting June 6th?
June 3rd. So
June 3rd. Yes.
Yep. So I will be part-time through the summer, and then I'm joining Shoreside full-time in September. So I will start taking new clients that next week, in about a week and a half.
Yeah. So reach out right away so you can get in.
Yeah, definitely.
All right. Thanks, Kate. We'll talk to you soon.
Thank you, Laurie.
Bye.